So let's start then, fellas. The only place that we can start, Dak's new deal. Tim, it would seem wrong for me not to come to you on this one. Obviously broke overnight. Huge money involved, mate, but I know you must be pleased with your Cowboys hat on.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Dak Prescott probably woke up this morning and played this little song to himself, didn't he? Money, 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 money.
Do you reckon he strapped on the $1 million belt? Well, the first thing.
He probably bought and bought one, didn't he? But yeah, everyone seemingly does have a price, and the Dallas Cowboys did eventually obviously pay up. 4 years. On the first look of it, obviously it was reported as a 4-year deal, which surprised me a little bit, considering obviously last year the length was one of the sticking points between Dak and his agent and the Cowboys. But if you look into it, it's actually 6 years with the back end 2 being voided off. And Cowboys actually did want a 5-year deal last year. And if you think that they've had this franchise tag plus this 4 years, they have essentially get their 5-year deal. And if you look at the money over the period, it averages out to about 38 million a year. Obviously, your 40 is the one that's going to be easily divisible when you look at 4 years, 160 million. But I think there's going to be people on both sides of the fence. It's just the nature of the game. On the plus side for Dallas, they'll have a 15 million saved in cap space this year, which helps them if they want to make a run and go all in kind of this year. They've certainly got the offense, and defense obviously needs a bit of tooling up. But as a fan, very happy. I said when I sent the rundown last week in preparation for this, I put the question, do you think he'll get a new deal or not? And I was quite adamant he would get a new deal, to the point where I bought a Dak Prescott jersey last week that I'm still waiting for. Otherwise, I would have worn it today with absolute pride. Happy as a Cowboys fan. Just hoping now we can Dan Quinn can sort the defense out a little bit, and we can make a kind of a run, or at least have a winning record in the NFC East, which probably going to be good enough, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Could well be. Steve, you're obviously a fan in that division, so let's get it from a rival's perspective. What do you think of the deal?
I'm not necessarily too surprised that he signed. I didn't think he'd go anywhere else. I was surprised it was now. I thought he'd play one more year on the tag, and then that would potentially put him in an even better position to then try and negotiate an even bigger deal next season. But I guess with his injury, has his injury forced his hand? I don't know. But even then, if it has forced his hand, he's still come out of it the second highest paid quarterback of all time. So he hasn't done too bad, has he? Interesting stat I found that from the 2015 and 2016 NFL drafts, only one of the 22 quarterbacks selected in those drafts remains with their original team, and that is Dak Prescott, which is astonishing. 22 quarterbacks and only one is still there. So my concern from the flip side of this is that if you look at what's just happened with the likes of Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, and potentially what might be happening with Deshaun Watson in Houston, is it now becoming a risk to give quarterbacks these huge contracts when, if they have one bad season or if they get injured, they're gone, they're out the door, because you can't afford to then have a quarterback that's not playing at the top 5 level. So that's an interesting question, and I wonder if the big blockbuster contracts could be on the downfall moving forward, because if you're not a top 5 caliber quarterback, are you going to get the deal, or are the teams going to roll the dice again? So it's certainly interesting, but it was a bit of a surprise, I must say.
Yeah, I think it's sort of really, unfortunately for the Cowboys, the way they've handled the last few years, they've kind of almost hamstrung themselves into this position. As you said there, Dak's now being paid the second highest quarterback in the NFL. Is he the second best quarterback in the NFL? I think even Tim's going to struggle to argue that one, if we're being completely honest. I'm not saying he's bad at all. He's a very, very good quarterback. But you mentioned 2 quarterbacks there. He obviously was in the same draft as Goff and Wentz. Incredibly similar career stats. Not a huge amount between them. Obviously Dak came out the draft a lot lower, so expectations weren't as high, and he's certainly outperformed potentially what his expectations would have been. But essentially, like I said, the Cowboys, Tim mentioned the defense there. That was obviously the big problem last year. When Dak was healthy last year, they were putting up a ton of points, and they still had a losing record by the time that Dak ultimately, his season came to an abrupt end. the Cowboys better hope that this offense goes, because they have got 100 million of cap space invested in just 6 players on the offense. And that's 3 of the starting offensive linemen. That's Collins, Tyron Smith, and Zach Martin. And then they've got Cooper, Elliott, and Dak. Essentially, like I say, 100 million in those 6 players on offense. That rises by 2022 to 125 million. There's not a lot of easy get-out clauses in these contracts for them either. You've then got DeMarcus Lawrence, who's obviously got paid in recent years. He's on huge money. I think he's 25 million cap hit this year. So those 6 players plus 1 defender are making up 125 million out of a potential 180 million cap figure. So I think it's great news for the Cowboys in as much as they've got their guy, but because they've paid so many guys previously, you're almost in this position there where, dare I say it, they need to win pretty quickly, because the window is going to be extremely short.
Yeah, no, I think you'll see Zeke, and there's a few of those names that you called out that are probably going to be getting restructured contracts, and the Dak Prescott contract as well. Just looking at it, it isn't the worst in 2023 either. So, because of the way they've structured it, it's one of the few contracts they've actually structured quite well, and they've actually been a bit shrewd about it. So that's unusual. As a Cowboys fan, that doesn't usually happen. I think it's going to be telling to see what they back that up with in free agency. It is time to put up or shut up now for Dak. It'd be interesting to see what he can do. They could say his biggest knock is his 1 playoff win. We can now focus on the defense in the draft, maybe an O-line piece as well. But let's not forget as well, Mike McCarthy. This probably changes the outlook for him as well, because he's got the quarterback for 3 or 4 years, and he's got all the tools, especially on offense. Obviously, Dan Quinn's got to do some bits on the defense, but it'd be interesting to see if the leash changes for Mike McCarthy, or whether or not that kind of signals, okay, we're going to give you a couple of years, 2 years until we could technically get out of Dak's contract if we wanted to, or moving on. So interesting dynamic there. It's probably just a kind of a surplus to requirements in terms of narrative, but very interesting.
I think you made a good point, Sean, that it puts real pressure on the team to win now, this year or next year, because they have to hit on this draft. They have to pick up, a good. I think your 2 cornerbacks are both out of contract, aren't they? The starting cornerbacks from last year, so they have to be picking up these free agents that have got to hit the ground running and start straight away. And next year, the cap number is probably going to be squeezed even tighter with those 6 contracts that you're talking about. Can they win straight away? I mean, the good news is for Cowboys fans is the NFC East is not particularly competitive at the moment, and so if you can put together a run, it could be said that you could quite easily take the NFC East. But then going further than that is a whole other ball game, especially with the repeat contenders in the NFC every year. Your Saints, your Packers, now the Buccaneers. They're going to be there every year. Are the Cowboys good enough to beat any of those teams? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, it will be interesting to watch. But like I say, Dak tied up for the next 4 years, and one of the significant quarterback dominoes has fallen back in the position that he was in at the back end of last season. Another